Hello and good afternoon from the sunny Ecuadorian afternoon. I'm Dave Edelstein here to talk to you about all things mindful, communicative, relating, getting along, and speaking to one another. Hi, Shelley. Um, Today, as promised yesterday, I thought I'd say a few words about tone. Uh, it's very important if we're going to communicate mindfully to be very aware of the words that we use, the words that we choose, the structure of our sentences. Hi, Rachel. Listening carefully to the words that people say. But there's this other element in our communication that's very important. And it falls into the general zone of body language, although it isn't really the body. Hi, Kaz. It isn't really so much the body as the voice. Uh, it's not words. It's the sound of the words. It's the way we say things. For example, here I am uh, trying to uh, express myself in a positive and friendly way about subjects that matter to me and that I hope matter to you, having to do with communication, relationships, and so on. But I imagine that there are some people who listen to me speak about these things and they hear, well, doesn't he sound sure of himself? Doesn't he sound like he's teaching a lesson? And perhaps it's unavoidable. Hi, Claudia. Uh, Perhaps it's unavoidable because I was a teacher. So when I start speaking like this about something that interests me, that I'm trying to share, where I feel that I'm sharing knowledge, probably that teacher persona starts to come out, and it might be annoying to many people. Um, and if it is annoying to you, I do apologize for that. It's not intentional. Um, and and isn't that just the point, really? Much of what we do in terms of tone is not intentional. It's coming from a fairly deep place in our brains where we think we're just talking, or most of the time we think we're just talking, and we may not be aware of our tone, but our tone can be very revealing of emotional states or attitudinal states, um, sometimes that we may not even be aware of. We may not be aware we're doing it. For example, I grew up in a family with three younger brothers, and my brothers and I think it's fairly hilarious to just make fun of each other brutally. And we do this all the time. We're supposed to be adults. I am now 60. My youngest brother is 52. And still, when we get together, we make fun of each other without mercy, and we laugh and laugh, and we think it's hilarious. And we think it's part of family life. We think it's part of, hi, Lance. We think it's part of family life. We think it's funny. We think it's fun. We think it's okay. Do it with anyone else, and it's not okay. It's not cool at all. Other people, unless they've specifically invited that kind of communication, find it extremely upsetting, offensive, bothersome, wrong. And I get that. I get that. And yet, if someone, especially a male someone, reminds me of a brother or a family member, that kind of teasing, mocking tone can creep into my voice before I am even fully aware of it. Right? And then this brings us back to mindfulness. If I'm mindful, I know that this is a risk. I have to think about, how well do I know this person? How well does this person know me? How am I communicating with them? What's my tone like? What's the urgency level of this message? What is the purpose of this message? Is the tone behind this message going to help me connect with this person, or going to drive them away? Same thing with that teacher tone that I mentioned at the beginning. I do want to sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I certainly don't want to sound like I'm talking down to anybody. It's really more the other way around. I'm grateful that you've stopped in. I'm grateful that you're listening to this. This is my little attempt to feel that I'm contributing something to the way people talk to each other, hopefully making that go a little bit better for people, helping people to get along. And I'm grateful that you're here. And I hope that you'll like this and share it around, and that other people will see it, and that no one will look at this and say, oh, that Dave guy thinks he knows so much. His tone bothers me. I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't. But I do have to maintain a mindful awareness of what my sound is like in an effort to make sure that I'm not being too teachery. I have to make sure that I'm not using fancy grammatical structures that sound very teachery and don't sound natural. And of course, there's more to it than that. Many husbands and wives complain about the tone that their spouses use with them. And in part, again, this goes back to something I mentioned yesterday. We learn a lot about communication and family life from watching our parents. And our parents, when they communicate with us, often talk down to us when we're children. And that's sort of understandable because they're adults, they understand things, and they've experienced things that we as children don't know anything about. But it establishes a routine of speaking to people in your family. What you learn is to speak to people in your family in that kind of condescending tone that your parents talk to you. Do this, perhaps unintentionally, perhaps without meaning to, just because your family life instincts were tapped. Do it by accident with your spouse, and you could do a lot of damage in a really short time. No one likes to be talked down to. No one likes to feel that they're being spoken to, from a high place. And yet, we have a lot of training to speak to people like that. Our parents speak to us like that when we're kids. Our teachers speak to us like that when we're kids. And this goes on at least until we leave home. And then, if we go to college or, because the boss speaks to us this way, our college professors speak to us this way, anyone in position of authority, and most of us have to deal with people in authority, very often use that tone, that I'm in charge and you're not tone. In a family, you really have to work mindfully with your mind engaged. Hi, Zach. Hi, Isabel. You really have to work with your mind engaged to avoid that tone. Because if there's a situation where there's a disagreement, hey, Al, wonderful to see you here. Oh, look, a member of my own family who's put up with just this kind of talk is here watching this now. Use that tone with a spouse or romantic partner, a person that you're trying to develop an equal relationship with, and it's trouble. And if you are in disagreement and you have a point of view that you become perhaps too attached to, and the other person doesn't seem to be getting it, you could slip into that tone before you even know it. It could just happen. And you don't mean to be that person. And maybe you're trying to choose your words carefully, but that edgy, I know and you don't, Don't you get it? Don't you see that impatient, I'm tired of arguing about this because I want it my way, sound gets into your voice and you're done. So yeah, even as we're being mindful of what we're saying and how we're saying it, and even as we're trying to be good, active, attentive, caring, mindful listeners, tone can be something that we really have to manage at a very deep level, because we often don't think about that sound. How is this going to sound? We think very often more about the words than the tone of voice. So as you hit the weekend, and perhaps you'll be spending more time with the ones you love, please be careful. Please be mindful. I always like to bring it back to that. Please be mindful of the sound of your voice. It takes practice to control this. It's very deep. It's way down in your subconscious. Not having a full grip on this is not unusual, but it is something you are responsible for, and that your partner will rightly hold you responsible for. So if you want communication in your home, or even at work among peers, to be good, even your communication with your children, especially as your children grow to adolescence and adulthood, if you want communication with people to be good, be good. Think deeply about how you sound. Do your best to keep that positive, friendly, giving tone in your voice that shows that you care. And I care. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for stopping in. Please like and share this if you have liked it. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Take care. Have a good evening. Bye now.